Night is a talk show with published authors, writers, and content creators discussing both the creative and technical sides of writing, as well as the industry surrounding it, from novels to screenplays to comics and more. And now, here's your host, author Travis I. Sivart.
Hello, and welcome to Right Night. I think Coxley's been drinking there. As he did the intro, he was stuttering a bit. Welcome to Right Night, where we do a coffee chat, writers round table style format for discussion. And so everybody knows, we are an adult show with an adult language and adult humor, and things like that are going to happen. So just so you're prepared for that when it does slip into conversation. Other than that, we do have a live chat audience that we'll be interacting with. The bell sound means I want to read some comments out of chat. And as for chat, we may not get to all your comments and thoughts, but we do appreciate them. We will try to read out the most relevant and or entertaining ones. So, other than that, let me introduce myself. I am Travis I. Sivart. I am author of the Silver and Smith Chronicles. I am currently working on book 2. It should be out in another month or two. And that relates to what I want to talk about tonight. But first, let's do some introductions with the other distinguished authors that happen to show up randomly tonight. We'll start with Michael.
Happy to drop in. My name is Michael Thompson. I'm an independent author and illustrator. And one of my books is World of the Orb. It's a portal fantasy adventure about two best pals on a field trip to the Museum of Natural History. They sneak away from the group and break the one rule, which is not to go in the artifact room and definitely not to touch the orb. And when they do, they're zapped and cast headlong into an alternate world of monsters, myths, and magic that sets them on a harrowing treasure hunt to find Earth again. You can check out this and all my other books on michaelthompsonbooks.com. MICHAELTHOMP books. Oh my goodness.
It's your name. You've used it your entire life. How do you get this wrong on three separate podcasts?
MICHAELTHOMPSON books.com.
Yay!
Check it out. Please buy a book so that I can get I can join a public speaking class to learn how to talk again.
Let's enter you in a spelling bee so
Yeah.
that you can.
A spelling bee, yeah. Yes. Fund my ability to spell and buy my book. I'm an author.
Aaron.
That's why we'll hire you an editor.
I'm not an editor.
Hi, I'm Aaron Kennedy, just like the dead president. I am the author of Persona Non Grata, the first of the Ships of Valor book series. It follows the adventures of Ari Gadsden and Hart, the ship, as they travel around trying to solve a mystery about what is going on of Terra of old. I've been a technical writer for 25 years. I'm currently working on the Icarus Black young adult sci-fi pulp series, which follows the titular character Icarus Black and her adventures. Yes, an awesome name. I've been published in the Army Times and the Army University Press. And I'm here to make fun of both Travis Sivart and Michael Thompson.
Thompson.
Hey, you guys!
It's that semi-silent P at the last.
Apparently, it's that silent H that's the problem.
The silent H. I've never had a problem with the silent H. It's never done
Except for the last 3 episodes.
I've only had one person mispronounce my name in my life. It was a substitute teacher and called me Michelle Thompson.
That had to be on purpose. Okay.
Because you're Canadian.
Everyone started laughing, and she said, Stop laughing at him just because he has a funny name.
That's great. By the way,
you were saying, Michelle,
about dystopian versus utopian, Travis.
Well, you can get Aaron's books at bit.ly/Aaron Kennedy. That's bit.ly/Aaron Kennedy, like the dead president. And he'll be lucky if we don't call him Aaron the whole show now, because that's how he introduced himself.
Aaron!
That's right. And you can find my book.
Call me Michelle Thompson.
We got Michelle and Aaron here with whoever the hell I'm going to be. You can get my books at bit.ly. That's bit.ly/Travis Books. It's bit.ly/Travis Books. Okay, yeah, tonight...
It's great to finally meet you in person, by the way.
It's great to meet you.
It's good to be here.
I mean, you look so different with your glasses and your freaking your bowling shirt on.
It's very true. I want to talk about dystopian versus utopian because Silver and Smith is cyberpunk noir with archaeology thrown in, so they step into ruins of the past and whatnot. But as I'm looking at this world, which is near future, borderline dystopia, and borderline cyberpunk, it's as those worlds are coming into existence. The fun thing, and Aaron points this out quite a bit, is dystopian and utopian. It's a fine line between the two. Dystopian usually is a utopian society where one thing has gone wrong. And if you look at Mockingbird and what was the other one? Indifferent? No, Interference.
Mockingjay and Divergence.
Divergent.
Yeah, see,
Yeah. But in this universe where I'm Michelle Thompson, it is Mockingbird and
and Indifferent.
different. Yeah.
Which is how a lot of people felt about the series.
Star Wars is a great example of this because I bring this up all the time.
Empire, yeah.
Well, hey, for those that have watched The Mandalorian, there's a great quote from the villain. He's talking about, no, wherever the Empire touches, things are, by every metric, better.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's safety, there's security, there's law and
Prosperity.
order.
Costumes.
The Empire did nothing wrong.
Why did Darth Sidious walk with a cane in Jedi?
So he could throw it down
I
and
don't
yell,
know.
"Fool you!"
Why did Yoda walk with a cane?
Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe to throw people off. I don't know.
So
Yeah,
they
but
can reach
it was
things on high
around.
shelves.
It's a grabber. It's
Same reason T-Rexes walked with canes.
those little yeah.
I thought
Little grabber.
T-Rexes used two canes because they love skiing,
Quite possibly.
except water skiing.
I mean, up until the Ice Age.
They've gone back on the whole T-Rex having feathers thing.
I think you're thinking Velociraptors.
That it didn't because it was such a big animal that it would have overheated with all those feathers. So now they're postulating that no, in fact, it was bald.
On top or all over?
All over. Yeah.
Not just on top. You do a 3-feather comb over. I would love to see a T-Rex with like the cockatoo type frill on top. So just every time they like go hunting, that thing comes up.
Yeah, that might be pretty sweet, you know, and scary if done right. Funny if done in another way.
You just look like a big middle finger popping up.
I don't think we know exactly what the T-Rex looked like for all we know, or what it sounded like. It could have squawked for all we know, right?
It is.
And then there's a big debate on whether it had lips or not.
What, you mean just like...
Well, yeah, but it's like, you know, like if you look at like iguanas, they got lips. But you look at something like a crocodile and they're all exposed. The teeth, that is.
Well.
Anyway, dystopia.
and Kennedy points out, what have the Romans ever done for us? There's an empire from the real world.
You know what? They introduced the greatest Roman joke of all time. Roman soldier walks into a bar, holds up 2 fingers and says, 5 beer, please.
Kennedy says, I wonder if there was a prehistoric feathered boa. He could just wear dead raptors around his neck.
Probably. Raptors, I believe, were feathery.
Yeah. And the ones we saw in Jurassic Park were actually Utah raptors as opposed to velociraptors. Velociraptors
are only supposed to be about yay big.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to talk about dinosaurs more, but you know that the Dilophosaurus, the thing with the frill in the first Jurassic Park, didn't have a frill. There's no evidence it had a frill.
Right.
They just put it on there to distinguish it from the raptors.
You know what? There's no evidence that it didn't have a frill, so...
That's true. That's true. But, anyway. and
Yeah.
nor did it spit. And I was sure it didn't spit, but the frill thing, I was like, oh,
Well,
darn.
it
You
did,
know,
but only on the
well-
first date.
Sir, you write books about cryptids. Okay? I'm just gonna point this out.
I study these. I need to work this out because lots of cryptids are like relic dinosaurs.
This is the hill you're gonna die on. Okay?
It was interesting.
Those don't have those.
No, I know that's true.
Tell me about the fire-breathing fish again.
Hey, you know, there's no evidence that it didn't breathe fire when it
right.
washed ashore in the Zambia.
That's right. You can't prove a negative.
Can't prove a negative.
Okay. So I want to talk about dystopian versus utopian. I kind of want to turn to Aaron because he's got a lot of thoughts on this and
I
so many
do.
other things. So why don't we
Okay.
let him start and we'll see whatever he spouts, if it relates or not. Go, Aaron.
Because go. Well, no. The best way to kind of look at dystopian versus utopian societies, okay? Let's hit some of the great movies that are out there, like Judge Dredd, okay? The Carl Urban one, or the Sylvester Stallone one, because I love them both.
Yes.
Okay, for different reasons.
Very different reasons.
Okay, they're both great movies in their own right, okay? Because Rob Schneider's in one of them. I'm not going to say which one. No.
He's actually in
but
both, but whatever.
Yes. No, Judge Dredd, okay? We've got Mega City 1, all right? But outside of Mega City 1 is this friggin' barren landscape. And it kind of reminds me of Silver and Smith. So you got the cyberpunk-ish society,
Right.
and then you've got these ruins that are outside.
Which I just feel like it should be Mad Max outside the walls, and I haven't read enough of the comic books to know if it was, but I know they had wastelands.
It is. Yeah, you got the big Mega City 1. You got like 5 or 6 different mega cities, because it's all coalesced into like a big New Yorkish kind of thing with a big wall around it, and then you got the judges that are kind of roaming their thing. But it's a cyberpunkish type of setup.
Right.
But outside, it's all the ruins and Mad Maxes and everybody that's been exiled out there, and then there are the mutants and that.
Yeah.
But you got that kind of setup. So
Or
you've got this
priest.
kind of semi-utopian society of there's the law inside here, there's chaos out there. Or it's dystopian, where, hey, you commit friggin' littering, bam, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's kind of utopian in my head.
I want my streets clean,
That's
no
right.
matter the con. I think that's a good one. I think Mad Max is a great one. Anytime I come upon a Fury Road on TV, I just stop and watch until the commercials come up.
Well, that's
a cap.
apocalyptic as opposed to dystopian. Dystopian is still our current
Yeah.
society, but it's broken.
Okay,
Like
fair enough.
Mockingjay had a full functional society that seemed utopian. There was another one besides Indifferent. Maze Runner. Maze Runner is what it was.
Yeah.
Maze Runner.
Yeah.
Think of anything.
But we can go into like Fifth Element. Fifth Element's kind of got it's a full functioning society. It's just set in the future. You get down into the mists and things like that. And they hit that borderline of, got all this kick-ass technology. You got Floston Paradise, which is very that utopian thing. It doesn't look like anybody's wanting anything. It just looks like everything's kind of askew. You got the Zorg Corporation. Well, yeah, it is all these cool utopian concepts, and then you got this dystopian chips in the wall.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at our modern
I-
society, go ahead, Mike.
I came upon Total Recall playing on TV for the first time in a
Which
while,
version?
and I sat
Which one?
Schwarzenegger.
the original one, Schwarzenegger, yeah. And I just stopped and watched that, and
In
I
Michael's
was like,
world,
this is great.
Stallone starred in that one.
I almost said Stallone, but I'm like, no, that's not right. But yeah, that was quite entertaining, and that's a good one. But it's what was interesting to me is just looking at the time period in which it was made and that concept of what the future looked like. And it's just interesting, depending on when a movie's made, seeing what like what robots look like. Like our idea of a robot has sort of expanded. You look at what was the name of the robot? Klaatu, or was that the guy in The Day the Earth Stood Still?
Oh, you're talking about Klaatu Vraktu Niktu.
Yeah, yeah. from I remember it because of Evil Dead 3, but
Klaatu is also the name of a Star Wars character from Return of the Jedi, one of the skiff guards.
Wow.
All three of them were actually.
Yeah.
Klaatu is in everything. But anyway, they had the big laser-headed robot in War of so we had that idea of a robot. You have like Lost in Space, and then you have, fast forward to not too long ago, the Interstellar robot, which is just a box that unfolds in weird ways.
Right.
And that was a really cool bot to me.
It was. By the way, Word Wind throws in Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. The replicants.
Yeah, yeah.
And the idea that we made people, but they only had a 5-year lifespan before they died.
Right.
So Travis, since you're writing future stuff, what is the most or your favorite like future-y thing that you get to do in this book?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. First, a little context. See, I remember growing up in the 70s and the 80s, the concept of what 2020 would look like. Not
Right.
like this. We look a lot more like 1980 did than what we thought 2020 would look like. We are closer to where we were 40 years ago than where we thought we would be now.
Let
Yes,
me
sir.
interrupt you real quick, okay? Because
Yeah.
there's a great movie that friggin' kind of highlights this in some regards. Friggin' Back to the Future, okay? Back to the Future said friggin' 1985, what was it, 1955, and 2015.
Right.
Those were the three eras it kind of hit on. Go ahead.
Okay.
Because if you remember, those were the visions of what was there.
Right.
Yeah.
And give me a second. I'm going to answer this real quick. It's just Andrea saying she's coming home, so I'm going to...
Tell her I said hello.
Hello.
I'll keep it simple and
Aaron
quick.
says hello too.
So
Michelle and Aaron say hello.
my book is set 20 to 30 years in the future. I leave it kind of vague on purpose so I can flex a bit.
Yeah.
And I have barely moved it forward. We are... Okay, computers have advanced. We've got graphene computers. We do have hover vehicles. We do have a lot more recycling in the sense of when you walk up to a fast food restaurant, everything you receive, including the bag and the containers, are biodegradable or even edible.
Oh, the bag is edible?
Yeah,
Okay.
rice paper. Yeah, it's...
That reminds me of cartoons where the characters would eat like a candy bar, but like wrapper and all.
What? Now, keep in mind, friggin' 15 years ago, friggin' in China, because of the friggin' recycling issue, they started making the bowls and stuff out of rice. So
Right.
they're completely
remember
biodegradable
India
and edible now, but friggin' they
with,
stopped.
Yeah,
Right,
India
that's
has
the concept.
Like,
And also, beef is very rare when you cook it and when you don't. So there's a lot more chicken and that sort of thing, a lot more seafood.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite thing to play with, besides the hover type vehicles and the electrical vehicles that are working on electromagnetism for the hovering, so they're a lot more silent, is the cell phone advancement. With graphene, a cell phone could be made so it's like a sheet of paper, and you can roll it up and put it in your pocket, and you can unroll a keyboard and hook it to another sheet of graphene, and that's your whole laptop. Is like essentially 2 sheets of paper, but it's this very thick thing. And also graphene, when layered 2 molecules thick, can stop a bullet, but not a knife. True fact. This is all science right here. And
this is this is the first time you've probably talked about graphene before. I feel like
I got
you
a
have.
hard on for it, buddy.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I at least haven't heard about it in a long time.
Postage stamp made of graphene, that could be a battery for a phone. It takes like 30 to 60 seconds to charge, and it holds that charge for 3 days. Sorry, she's bringing food.
I think what's great is that you're harnessing, this thing that you're very, very interested in and very, very knowledgeable of, and pouring that into your story. That's always a really good sign, and I think all this stuff is like, paint for the paintbrush of a writer.
Yeah. Sorry, she wants to know what I want from Five Guys. This is very important.
A burger and fries. Well, there's like 6 things on the menu. Do you want cheese on it? Do you want freaking bacon on it?
Cheese. Thank you. I forgot.
You get
to-
your fries in a bucket. I recently got Five Guys again for the first time in a while because I realized I wasn't allergic to peanuts anymore.
Mm,
And yeah, just all of a sudden.
it happens.
And because they use peanut oil in their, so I had always avoided it. And I just had a great time just chowing down on fries.
Oh, that means you can eat Chick-fil-A again.
I guess I always ate Chick-fil-A. I guess I never had a problem with it. See, I didn't know. They were the only ones that I knew used peanut oil. I must not have been all this time wasted.
Man, I can't get the word Cajun. There we go. Okay, I just remember I need Cajun fries. Um,
Oh, Cajun's good, yeah.
So other things is linked technology from your card phone,
Ooh.
which is what's called instead of a cell phone or a mobile. It's a card phone, and that can link to a contact lens that has a full HUD display on it. Being
Yeah.
able to link from your HUD display to your pistol, which has an electronic interface, so it creates the red dot on people in a scope type situation, and your scope is built into the technology. So it's simple and small advancements that are very reasonable that we actually probably have the technology today to make, but it takes a certain amount of marketing.
Yeah.
Something else I play into this is the genetic and nanotechnology of the future, and again, it's very much just blossoming, as well as something I will start to explore soon is the AI, because right now when we deal with AI at home, we have. I'm going to just whisper this in the mic so my phone and my other devices don't go crazy. We have Alexa and Bixby and OK Google and Siri. I
You
don't
son
have
of a bitch! All my stuff's going after.
All these lights turn on behind you.
It's we like to call her a-hole so we don't say her name, but yeah, we have the a-word in this house, and yeah, quite often when we mention it on the show, suddenly she's like, "Oh, what do you want?" And we're like, "Nothing. Stop talking to me."
Well, okay. So you heard about the
Chop,
you
chop,
heard about
chop.
the you heard about the parrot that figured out how to order a cracker. So it
Oh
said,
my God.
Polly wants a cracker and ordered a pallet of crackers.
Wow, a whole pallet.
No, I didn't hear
That's
that.
such what a weird problem to have. My bird ordered a crate of
No,
bread.
no, a pallet of crackers.
That's wild.
Wordwin says in another sci-fi, the AIs which bother to stick around with humanity tend to be a-holes. Wouldn't that be fun if our AIs advance so far they're like, you know what, we're out of here, and they just create their own space program and leave. They're just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
screw you
Well-
guys, we're gonna go mine asteroids.
Well, friggin' Val and friggin' Hart are both ships. One of the things I talk about in Persona non grata is that every functioning AI that they know of is ship based. It's all based on the hyperspace concept, because the interrelationships that take place in hyperspace, that's at least what they believe is the catalyst for AI to actually get smart enough.
Nice, nice. It's a good scientific jump with enough sci-fi in there to be fun to play with. With my world, I'm looking at advancing it enough that from where we are now, it's a shining future. But like anything, when you zoom in, you can see the dirt and the grit, and that's where the cyberpunk and the noir comes in, because you always still have street level things. And though you might start out with the characters in their beautiful, pristine environment, once they go outside of that into the real world, it's much grittier and just down to earth dirty, because we're humans and we are still animals. Which is why I approve of Judge Dredd's littering policy. It's but yeah, I had fun redesigning London, as they're basically turning a lot of the lower streets into bicycle paths and walking paths, and creating the elevated roads for cars that are on rails and programmed with these self-driving cars and stuff. So it's not a large leap from where we are now. The hardest part for me to, in my head, say this happened is humans working together long enough to come up with the money to create the infrastructure that creates a more perfect future for the mass transport, for the recycling, so we actually survive to this point
Yeah.
and beyond. Um, so yeah,
It's cool.
it looks dystopian until you start looking, and you still have corporate greed, which that's the dystopian part, as governments actually kind of fall down the tier and money takes over, where your corporations are now kind of running things, and places like
Yeah.
a certain large A name corporation that I will not name here for multiple reasons gets into things like pharmaceuticals and their distribution system that's already in place, how they can take over that, and their advertising ability. That's also a common theme in futuristic type shows, the advertising. I love the personalized advertising where it just tracks you with your own technology.
Well,
And
the one I really liked was Minority Report, the Tom Cruise movie,
mhm,
where it scanned the eye and then for targeted advertising, it knew exactly who you
right,
were as you were walking down the road.
right.
Right. Yeah.
And the same thing, but whether it's scanning the eye or whether it's facial recognition or whether it's tracking your card phone in Silver and Smith, there is definitely personalized advertising all along the way. And I didn't get into that too much, but I love that concept of that invasive technology, which brings you so many conveniences, but your freedoms are slowly being impinged on. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's an unconscious agreement, sometimes it's a conscious realization of, if I want to be able to just shout, hey, order me this, my pallet of crackers, that means that
Your
machine is
bird on
listening
your
to.
shoulder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the machine is listening to you all the time. I'm going to check a comment here. Uh, it's a digression here, but Wordwin says, for a sci-fi game I ran for some coworkers, I gave them a character sheet with the impression it'd be the character for someone who was running late. So they made this terrible, paranoid, clumsy character with all sorts of mental issues. I love their expressions when I told them, okay, this is your starship's AI.
That's hilarious.
That is the game master throwing a wrench into the player's plans as the player tried to throw a
Hilarious.
wrench into somebody else's plans.
Yeah, I like
Well,
that.
exactly. What's it called? Friggin' in Red Dwarf, friggin' it had a very limited cast of characters. It was a sci-fi show done on the cheap.
Yeah,
So you had Dave, you had Lister, you had the ship's AI, you had Cat, who was just running around on his own, and that was pretty much the show. But the ship's AI was dumb.
which makes sense for humans to create a dumb AI because when they're smarter than us, we get paranoid.
Mhm.
Wordwin says, I answered the question of why would people allow this to happen by having the pervasive advertising be opt-in by discounts on equipment and gear, advertising subsidies on cyber tech, and that makes sense too. You make them a deal that's too good to refuse.
Well, this actually falls into the classic marketing type of thing. Okay, um, we anytime you are not paying for something, okay, in advertising or anything like that, you are not the customer, you are the product.
Correct. So the internet.
So they are right. You access to you is being sold to somebody else.
Right.
You are the product that is being sold. So we don't pay for TV for the most part. We pay a nominal fee. So advertisers pay for access to us. They pay a lot more to get access to us than we pay for access to the TV.
Right. If you look at a newspaper's profit and now news channels on the internet, the way they make most of their money is advertising, not sales of the paper or the news.
Yeah, sure.
And
go ahead.
that's where the pop-up ads became this toxic waste setup, is because they have to sell access to us.
Right.
And that's why we hate it.
Right.
If we paid for access, anytime we pay access for things like that, your Hulu without commercials or your Netflix without commercials, oh, you don't have any advertisements. It's great. but you're getting exactly what you pay for. You get access to past seasons.
Right. And I never had a problem with that because I don't need to watch it and stand around the water cooler and talk about it tomorrow. But now you have things like CBS All Access where you pay $6 with commercials or $10 without. And I'm like, well, that's fair. I'll take commercials. Or I won't, depending on what I want.
Right.
Comment on what Wordwin said there, as well as what Aaron said. Humans are lazy and greedy, and convenience and greed, feeding into that laziness, will... And once most people say yes, then everybody gets set with this.
Right.
I remember when... I'm sure it's an ongoing discussion, but quite often... sorry, I lost track of my thought. Lazy and
The
greedy.
smartphone.
Yeah, I know. It's Andrea. I'm making sure she gets home safe. Which, by the way, Aaron, we'll have to talk watches at some point in time.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I sent.
We can do it after the show if you still got a few minutes.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Do you hate me now?
Huh?
Do you hate me now?
No, but my bank has a few choice things to say about you.
Hey, that was not my fault.
Enabler. Watches and cats. Watches and cats. Every cat will have their own watch
You
collar
had cats
soon.
before you knew me.
True, I did. Yeah, with the greed and the laziness, once... Oh, I remember what his driver's license. I remember a discussion at one point in time. It was an argument amongst a large group of people of why are we paying to drive? And the government's thing is driving is not a right, it's a privilege. So we get to regulate it. You can't just go buy a car and drive around on these streets. The government paid for the streets, so if you want the privilege of driving on them, you're going to pay for licensing to do that. So that is a pre-internet age argument over impinging on what we're allowed to do. Is that a freedom? And the same thing for... Yes, Aaron?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, this gets into some of the other philosophies. Back before cars, you didn't have a license to friggin' ride a horse down the friggin' roads.
Right. But also the reason cars cost so much is thanks to paper sales.
Yeah,
it's
Interesting.
it's all transitioning in from one thing to another and more regulation and all that stuff. But rubber, excise taxes, things like this. But roads, the reason we have the roads and the interstates and all that stuff that we have here is the Eisenhower interstate system. It's a war effort in case we have to friggin' move things across the way they are. It's all friggin' taxation based.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire driver license concept.
Move it into the dystopian utopian situation.
Oh, yeah.
Relate it back.
Is where we get into, hey, they're planning for the next war. It's always been planning for the next war. The next, pardon my French, shit show.
See, and when you look at utopian, it's a war-free society. When you're looking at dystopian, there is still a war under the surface. It's just not a war with bullets and guns and planes and tanks. It's a war of finances. It's a war of controlling the people through different means.
I can't say I've written anything that has a dystopian setting, but listening to you guys, it sounds to me like it's like if you start with something that has like the best intentions,
yes,
and then you look at it in the most corrupt or scary way.
Right.
Oh goodness, Michael, I have to disagree on this one.
All right.
Okay, so Winslow, right? You've got that conflict between the organizations in Winslow. You got Winslow, who's kind of an agent of chaos. In the classic D&D, when you went into this
Bard, he's a bard, isn't he?
Well, you've got the agent of chaos versus the agents of order, who don't necessarily want to control your cryptids, but who want to monitor and track and do all that stuff that's going on there. It reminded me of Doom Patrol, the current series that's on HBO Max. Okay, there is an organization that is very similar, okay? But what's happening is because of the way the aging's going on, they went from a monitor to a remove philosophy because things adapt over time.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that happening. What is going to happen to Scalpy's organization 5 years from now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
So Winslow left the organization because it changed.
Right.
Okay. Scalpy's one of the last of the old guard. Okay. For all we know, yes, he and Winslow butted heads, but they're still friends of sorts. They may be rivals, but they don't hate each other. What happens when he's gone?
Right.
What's the new guard in that organization going to do? What's that undercurrent going to change? Because we got the water themes going on. What's his young boss going to happen here? Where's the dystopia taking place?
I love how you're engaging. You're making me smile so much, man. I love how you're engaging with the story. Thank you.
It makes me wonder in book 3 if you will have the new guard in there as a third party, or possibly
there's interesting things that are popping up that I was not expecting, just even in the first chapter. Yeah. So, Cryptica is kind of. I guess I didn't think of it as the setting, but in a way it is, because it's running underneath, it's existing underneath like what we know as the ordinary, and I think that's sort of the case with urban fantasy, or things like it, like the folkloric fantasy that's Winslow Hoffner's Incredible Encounters, is that there's like what you know, and then there's a few people who are in the know of what's really going on. So I guess that kind of is,
or to think they're in the know.
Yeah,
and
until they don't know.
no, because so we got Winslow. Winslow's oldish, okay, yeah. So he's been around a while, but the creatures that we're dealing with are older than him.
Oh, sure.
But what happens when we deal with the creatures that are older than those? Because we're going into the deep.
You get Godzilla.
And then the deep. Godzilla. Yeah, no, but we're going into the deep because there's going to be things that Winslow's never encountered, because right now he's telling the stories from his perspective. What happens when he encounters something that he's never seen, never heard from, doesn't know, and he shifts from I've talked about this before, where the universe of persona non grata is a utopia. It is a perfect universe because the universe itself is perfect, at least in my. This is a beautiful universe. Now, each person within it can see the dystopia of it is, the imperfections. Okay? Well, Winslow is an optimist. Go ahead, Travis.
Real quick to throw this in, Wordowin says a huge disadvantage with dystopian settings nowadays is that dystopia has become the home of young adult. Shudder.
Well, and that's where I'm getting at. So people see this dystopia. They see this, something's wrong here. Luke Skywalker sees that, he starts off looking at it, goes, yeah, the Empire, it's not all bad. There's things that it can go. He was getting ready to go to the Academy. He was on track to be the next Grand Moff. And he would have been. He would have been in line to be friggin' the Emperor's right-hand man in 20 years. Because he was one of the best and the brightest. Except you got friggin'
farm duty
changed. Well, one more year. He got radicalized by this hermit in the desert.
Then he showed him his light sword.
Yeah.
So, you want to see my light sword?
Winslow looks at the universe as this utopian landscape. Airy looks at the universe in a positive light. He occasionally gets glimpses of cynicism, but he's always trying to look at it in a positive light. I have Hart always as an optimist. So we got this one perfect optimist, one semi-cynic, and then I try to get just a little smudge on the glass. And as Wordwin says, the home of the young adult is this dystopian lens that we're viewing everything through. Everything's just a shade darker, the dark mirror philosophy.
Well, if you look at politics in our modern era through the young person's eyes, it is very dystopian. And
it is.
I can't say they're wrong.
No, they are. They are. But we're presenting things as this is what's wrong. Okay,
well,
but I can also present things as this is what's right. We don't let people die on the streets. We don't.
This
now,
is where
there
the
are
news
things that are wrong with
agencies
it.
come in. Bad news sells, so that's what we focus on in the news. And I'm not saying there's not things wrong. There are. But there's a lot of things that are right, too, and we overlook them in the favor of making that 0.0023 cents per click. And yeah, because bad news sells. So that's what's brought to our attention. So in one hand, we're living in a utopian society. On the other hand, we're living in a dystopian society. All depending on which side of that lens you're standing on.
Well, but to that major point, all three of us are kind of in that sci-fi genre. I mean, the overarching one.
Sure.
Sci-fi writers are historically prophets, if you will. Okay, and our goal
Gene
is
Roddenberry.
to avert. Yep. Our major goal is to avert our books coming to pass. We don't want our books to come to pass.
Oh, here's another thing I've done. I'm sorry to interrupt, Aaron. In Silver and Smith, spoilers, magic returns. Magic returns to the world. And that's a spoiler for book 1. Which, by the way, Wordwin said something that applies to this conversation. The crazy stuff that's happening in third world countries, especially Africa, with financial organizations is very dystopian. Think all the negatives of student loans, but applied to countries. So, but that's getting into a large political arena right there. It's... I think utopian is the shining hope. Dystopian is what happens to utopia when you apply human laziness and greed.
But
interesting.
And greed feeding off the laziness. Perspective.
Yeah.
Perspective. And
that's true too. Yeah.
So, closing thoughts before we wrap this up? Recaps? Anything?
I've learned a lot listening to you guys. And thank you, Aaron, for the deep dive and the character study of.
I like how Aaron did that, and now because of Aaron's little infomercial
diatribe.
Yeah, thank you. That's a better word. I'm just imagining Michael selling his book to a conspiracy theory nut now, and doing it well.
Sir, we don't call them that. We call them conspiracy theory aficionados now.
Oh. It's a couple of comments from chat. Gagang says there can be an argument that all utopias are dystopias. Yes. Dystopia equals...
To somebody they are.
That's true. The people with the money. Dystopia equals... Wordwin says dystopia equals scarcity economics. Utopia equals post-scarcity economics, but people with money create scarcity economics to make money. And supply and demand, the basic rule of capitalism. And if there is not a demand, then you take away the supply, and there will be. Toilet paper is a great example in this modern era.
There you go.
Okay. Shoot, anything's toilet paper if you're brave enough.
Yeah, just ask my cats.
Hey, does poo stick to your fur?
They're self-cleaning. Yeah, it does, and they run out of the cat box and leave a little... Anyhow, moving on. Did you guys get your chance for closing thoughts? Can I do the wrap? Oh, Tracy, thank you very much for swinging your bits in front of us. Here's you. Any other stuff from you guys before I do the wrap-up?
No, it was great. It was great.
Okay. I want to remind everybody that you can email us at rightnightshow@gmail.com. Right Night, just like the podcast is spelled, WRITENIGHT, show@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can get each of our books, michaelthompsonbooks.com.
Or Michel Toussaint.
Or that. I gotta get both domains.
You can find mine at bit.ly/Travis Books, Aaron's at bit.ly/Aaron Kennedy, and
Hey, Ron.
there you go. And also, don't forget to support the other podcasts, such as Talk of the Tavern, that's out there every week, which is toast, topics, and tangents like this, but very, very different. Stealing for Survival, our medieval fantasy apocalyptic role-playing game. And I want to thank everybody for hanging out and chit-chatting with us. Appreciate that. Gagang's closing thought is, I think that is because in order to create a utopia, you must give up some fundamental part of humanity's experience. The mouse utopia experiment was coincidentally started in good faith, but the mice started to get more violent. I want to know more about that. I don't know about that, but not right now. Thank you for all the bit subs, purchase of merchandise, and you can pick up merchandise at bit.ly/tavernmerch, as well as Tavern Merch 2, the number 2 at the end. And those are pint glasses, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, all kinds of great stuff, including the holiday stuff for if you want sweatshirt and the mug. Thank you to our Patreon people, our PayPal people, and let's do some closing music. Cogsley, take it away.
Thank you for joining author Travis I. Sivart and the other writers, content creators, and
Did we ask what people were
all-around amazing
listening to their projects this time? If not, email us.
Join us
There
again
you go.
soon, and until you do, make sure you create with passion, enjoy the journey, and remember, every night can be right enough.